Hey guys, Dave with Moniology here. Hope everyone is having a great day. Today is December 25th, 2017, and this is the Moniology Christmas Day special where we're analyzing the blockchain and AI sector and taking a look at the sector from a weekly perspective to get a better sense of what's actually taking place without some of the short-term noise. Let's have a look. Well, we'll start here with the Bitcoin index, NYXBT. This is as of Friday morning, so this is not updated here, but it still gives us a perspective of what's actually been taking place here. When we broke out above this 2,000 mark here, this was the sign that you wanted to go long. We had a major rally here, and 4,000 was that next line of demarcation. We broke out above that, we went to 8,000, and then we kind of started creating this wedge here. We broke out of this wedge around 10,000, and then we kind of started flying all the way to 20,000. Now this was a bearish wedge here, and we broke down below that here on Friday, and that's when we had this major takedown all the way down to almost 10,000, just above that. And I drew this trend line here just to give us a sense of the uptrend that we're in here. And so long as we're above this trend line and above this wedge upside trend line, I think that there's still upside potential in Bitcoin. I think we might take a couple of months to consolidate here between around 1,300 all the way to 20,000 before ultimately I think we'll end up breaking higher based on this price action. So taking a look at this here, right now price is around that 14,000 level here, trading on Monday, and so we've bounced so far, and let's see if we can break 15,000 to the upside. If that happens, then all of a sudden we might have ourselves a bullish wedge developing here, or a bullish flag rather, and likely setting up for the move higher. So let's see what takes place in the coming weeks ahead, and let's take a look at some of the names that are directly and indirectly tied to this particular sector. So first, Bitcoin Services Inc., BTSC. This one broke out of 13 cents here and rallied all the way to 64 cents. So had a very, very strong move, and some of us caught it, some of us didn't. But we've kind of been consolidating and creating this bullish wedge here for the last couple of weeks now. And look at the massive volume spikes that we've had. And so I think for the next couple of weeks we'll be up and down here again until ultimately we break higher. I wouldn't be surprised that in the next 3 months we're going to retag 64 cents. So if you're a longer term trader, there's some tremendous upside here. On the other hand, in the short run, I mean, there's downside all the way possibly to as low as 13 cents. So depends on your time frame, and this looks like a good pattern for the long term. Taking a look at Digitrade Financial Corp, DGAF. This one looks really good from a weekly standpoint. Now, we've consolidated basically from 2017, created this rounding base, now in massive volume, both in August of this year, as well as so far in the last week of December here, we had massive volume spikes on major up moves. Now we closed above the 50 moving average, 50-week moving average. We're above the middle Bollinger Band, so there's room for some consolidation here, and that's okay. We're firmly above on the RSI, firmly above that 60 to 61 level here, and while we're struggling to break out above 70, I think that'll ultimately happen. And when that does, we're in this downtrend here as well, and we tried to break out above it. We broke a lot of that resistance and ultimately closed below it, which is okay. And ultimately, I'd like to see some formation here in the stock price and ultimately break higher. I think we'll see 125 in the not too distant future. But in the meantime, I would expect to see some consolidation between that 37 to I'd say 62.5 cent range. So that's pretty wide. But from a longer term perspective, this is a very bullish development in this particular instrument. Next, and a lot of folks have been asking me about Digital Power Corp, DPW. This is one that's directly tied to Bitcoin and the price of Bitcoin. And so this one's going to be exceptionally volatile. I mean, there's no surprise here that we pulled back from 6 all the way down to a low of 3.5 for a while. We closed the week at 411. I think so long as we're above 350, really $3 to 350, I think we're still in this bullish uptrend. The momentum is very strong, but for us to go long this particular name, I mean, I think frankly it needs to break out above $6 or consolidate all the way down to $2. Otherwise, it's just too much of a bullish wedge, bearish wedge here that was created, and it's just too much downside potential. Possibly can go as low as $1, but I'm not saying it's going to do that, but we don't like the risk reward at this point after this rally. Ultimately, if Bitcoin goes to as high as I think it has a potential to do, all the way over 100,000, this one has tremendous upside potential in the long run. In the short run, this one is just too many gaps here for us to touch. Forum Holdings, this is one that we bought on Friday at $1.30. We really like this consolidation for basically 2 years, followed by this bearish, bullish wedge that was created, and finally we broke out above that here on massive volume. If we can maintain this particular 120 zone, and we can finally break out above that 40 level, 38 to 40 level in RSI, I think ultimately this is going to have much higher potential written all over it. 250 seems like it's in the cards. You look at the MACDs, they're starting to cross above zero, and so we really like this formation, this bullish wedge breakout here after some time of multi-year basing consolidation. So one of our favorites in this particular sector. And this one, by the way, this is not a Bitcoin play. This is a blockchain play. So that's important for us. We like blockchain. We don't necessarily like Bitcoin because they're just too volatile as long-term investments. Glance Technologies, GLNNF. This is one that broke down from its uptrend since September, and ultimately we think that if it stays above 125, it presents a good opportunity for higher prices, but with RSI breaking lower, I wouldn't touch this for the time being. Next on the list is Global Arena Holdings, GAHC. This is one that's tied to blockchain and Bitcoin. And while we really like this, I mean, we call this breakout here around 2 cents. It rallied all the way to 7 cents. So for those of you who were part of this rally, congratulations. It's obviously pulled back, and I would like to see some consolidation above this uptrend here for several weeks, and that would be very positive development if it can hold above this 3 cent level. Ultimately, then I think it breaks 5 and goes much higher. We like the MACDs. We like the MACDs here, and we like the RSI momentum here, where momentum is higher here at 66.5. When price is at almost 4 cents, is higher than when price was at 4.5 cents several months prior. So that's what you want to see. But ultimately, the 70 level is going to serve as resistance, and we might see a pullback here for a couple weeks. But look at the volume. This is crazy. I'm not going to buy here unless it breaks above 5 cents. But if it starts consolidating around that 2.5 to 3 cent range, that's when I'm going to start buying, reinitiating position long in this particular name. Hive Block Technologies, PRELF, is one that is consolidating here after a very, very huge move to the upside from low of basically 2 cents all the way to a high of 5.25. A couple millionaires probably created in that time frame if you're crazy enough to hold from here to here. But ultimately, this one is consolidating, and we like the MACDs. They're pretty low, but there's some upside potential, a lot of volume here. And if we start seeing some rounding out action on the MACDs, that'll be our sign that things likely want to move higher. But until they do, until we can kind of start moving back up in RSI, I wouldn't be necessarily long this name, because there can be some pretty nasty volatility. INPXion, this is one that we own. It's been a nasty volatile ride for the last couple of weeks. We trade, but we also own for the long run. We like this name for the long run. This is an AI play, not tied to blockchain directly, but this is kind of double bottoming action here. MACDs are curling back, they're above zero, and if they break below zero, this can break down, but we have a hunch that this is going to curl back higher. because we see some positive divergence on RSI. What do we mean by that? Well, we're at the same basically price level as we were in August of this year, but RSI is significantly higher at 31 than it was at around 15. So that's a positive development. If it can firm its base around the 22 zone, then that can really ride higher into the months ahead. We like INPX on a fundamental basis. We liked it from a technical basis here, and then when we broke down here, then that kind of gave us room for pause. But fundamentally, this has a very interesting story behind it, so do your due diligence. Integrated Ventures INTV is another name that we liked ever since it broke out of this downtrend here in November, and we think that this has tremendous upside potential in the long run. In the short run, well, so long as we're in this uptrend channel, this looks good. But if this breaks below that, I'd say about 130 level, then that's probably your sign you want to get out of this name. Ultimately, this was not a good place to buy. Here, the risk reward is much better, and so if you want to initiate long, this can, especially as Bitcoin, if Bitcoin can recapture 15,000 over the weekend, then ultimately this might continue moving longer. So it's had quite the pullback, but ultimately, on a weekly from a weekly standpoint, this could be just the beginning of a major move to the upside in the coming weeks and months ahead. Marathon Patent Group, MARA. Another one of these names that rallied tremendously from about $1 all the way to 10 as a high. That's crazy. We bought here, we sold out right here, we missed out on this run, but you can't win them all. Ultimately, I'm seeing some divergence, negative divergence in momentum, and so I don't want to own this name long until it possibly retraces all the way back to 250. And at that point, I would be buying with hand over fist. Looking at some other names in this space, MGT Capital Investments. This is one of those pure play pure play names in Bitcoin. And this one has been on our radar for a while. We've been trading in and out of this one. Look at this beautiful rounding base pattern here, cup and handle, and finally we broke out higher. And although we ran all the way to 850, we pulled back significantly with what's been happening in the price of Bitcoin. But ultimately, this is going to see much higher prices if Bitcoin can continue maintaining current price levels and moving higher. We think it will. We think ultimately this heads to $10 to $15 in the not too distant future. So we really like the upside potential here. For us to go long at this point, it needs to break out above 550. Otherwise, we'll be buying if it can consolidate it around the 200 EMA around $3. Next is OnTrack Innovations, OTIV. I like this one because it's got this RSI breakout pattern, and we really like that formation. If it can, it's above the 50 on the weekly RSI. If it can break above that level, ultimately, I think that this is going to head back towards $3. Ultimately, take on $5 in the not too distant future. Look at the MACDs. MACDs are curling above 0, which is positive. Look at the volume of last week; it's huge. So some tremendous upside potential there. Parrot Corp, another one of those blockchain companies, not Bitcoin. TEUM is the ticker. We bought long. We wanted to buy long here. We couldn't quite get the capital available. We missed this massive rally, but once it pulled back, we started buying around that 120 area, and we think that there's tremendous upside. From a longer term perspective, they're well capitalized now once they after their offering here. And look at the volume. There's some really nice technology behind this company. If it can break above this level, ultimately we think this is headed to $250, $5, potentially much higher. RSI is firmly above the 50 on the weekly. It's got positive divergence. We're higher at 127, or very close to being higher at 127 than when we were at 160, and certainly when we were at 176. So the positive divergence is what you want to see. MACDs are now firmly above 0 again, and so if this can break above this downtrend line, 250 is the next logical target. Rata Systems Corp, RSYS, another one that's got really good technology behind it. It's got some blockchain blockchain technology as well, and it's creating this beautiful wedge pattern with rising MACDs. If this can break above zero, I think it has tremendous upside potential. 150 as a first target, $2, possibly as high as 350. Look at RSI. I mean, obviously this was very oversold and looks like it wants to run. So it started running last week, got pulled back by the pullback in Bitcoin, but ultimately this is not related to the price of Bitcoin as much as the technology. So tremendous upside here. We're adding at every opportunity. RSYS. RIOT blockchain, RIOT, one of the leaders in the space. Well, I mean, this one was one of those that just ran because it's very much associated with blockchain itself. I'm going to draw the wedge pattern that kind of was being developed here, and that's not what you want to see if you're long. And it looks like it still has some upside potentially here, but it's creating some lower lows in RSI. So if that breaks below this level, then ultimately it can pull back as low as 1250, possibly even test the middle Bollinger Band and the 50-week moving average at around $7. So this obviously ran quite a bit, and it can run higher, but it ultimately depends on how the price of Bitcoin does in the coming weeks ahead. Next on the list is 7 Stars Cloud Computing Group, SSC, another one of those that tied to the price of Bitcoin, and it had a major rally over the last couple of weeks. And we're not buying. We wouldn't buy long here. We would wait until it pulled back to about 350. It closed at 534. If it breaks above $7, that's your sign that things are indeed taking off higher. So you could buy here as a momentum play, but as a value play, 350 is the area that I'd be looking for to initiate long on the position. But ultimately, there's slight divergence here at 534 versus when price was at 344. So that suggests that possibly momentum is waning. Now it could break out higher, and if that's the case, then we'll probably take out this momentum. But ultimately, from a weekly standpoint, this isn't a new uptrend, and so take every pullback as an opportunity to add long, because this can have multi 1,000% moves if Bitcoin continues to move higher. Single point SING is one that we own. It's a cannabis play that's tied to blockchain technology. And so this is a very beautiful chart, rounded base, breakout, flag pattern. Look for the breakout higher here in the coming weeks ahead. First price target is 15 cents. Once that breaks, that's ultimately the sign that things are moving much higher in SING. So we take every opportunity here to add long. Social Reality, SRAX, another one that's tied to the price of Bitcoin. Massive move here from a low of basically $1 to $8 in the better part of a couple of months. Now it's flagging again here, and if it can break out above $8, that's your sign to go long. Until then, you want to see consolidation above that 4, which coincides with about the 50 EMA and the middle Bollinger Band as well. U.S. global investors grow, another one of these that major basing pattern, then boom, took off and rallied from about $1 to almost $7. But you had multiple lower highs in momentum, so no surprise that we pulled back from 7 all the way to 4. If this breaks lower, if this bullish trend breaks lower, then ultimately you want to be starting to pick up shares where the 50 looks like it's about to cross the 200 EMA around the 250 level. So a lot of upside here in the long run, but in the short run, it still may pull back. Conversely, can go higher. So we're not touching this one, but we're definitely watching it from the sideline. Finally, a couple more names in this particular space. Veritone is another one of these AI plays. Broke out of this downtrend here, and we really like the upside here. This one can go to 35 very quickly, and breaks 35, then the next logical target is 45, followed by 55, and then 75. We think it's going to get there. It's got the technology, it's got the price action, and so it's just a matter of time. RIT Media Group, WRIT. This one is another one that's tied to blockchain, and so It broke out here very beautifully above this downtrend here. For us to go long, we want to see it break above that 200 or 50 EMA around 35, and that'll be a sign that this wants to move higher towards that 150 level. But ultimately, some healthy consolidation above this downtrend here would be another point that I would be looking to buy. Ultimately, the MACDs look fantastic. RSI is above 50, and ultimately we think that this is going to have much higher upside potential in the coming years. Finally on this list is XNET, Junlei Limited. This one rallied from a low of $3 all the way to 27. It's pulled back some to 12. If you bought here and you own it here, well, you're a bag holder. But ultimately, I think if 12 holds, then this is going to ultimately break this wedge to the upside and retest this 28 level. But until then, because it can't break above that 60 level, I think it might even move potentially lower all the way to this middle Bollinger Band and the 50 EMA. So stay tuned. Ultimately, these are weekly charts, so there's a lot of room for volatility, but we think that blockchain is here to stay, and AI is really a sector that's about to explode. So there's a lot of opportunities here. Take pullbacks as opportunities to add or initiate positions, and look at these breakouts, because they're very, very meaningful, and ones that we might look back at and say, wow, we missed an opportunity of a lifetime. Guys, thank you for watching. And good luck with trading. Have a great week.